We've been at the gym for hours, just getting shredded in preparation for our review of Kraven the Hunter. And Tim Grierson really was the first person I thought of.
Yes.
And I thought, who's going to talk about Kraven the Hunter with me?
Who's got awesome abs, you thought to yourself?
Right? You look wholesome in your like little half zip thing. I know that they're down there. I know. I haven't seen them, but I can tell.
I don't want to brag like the way Aaron Taylor Johnson does in the movie. I respect that you understand that I'm not like a bragger about it. I know I've got a killer ab, but come on, like people don't need it. It's just one, by the way, not a whole pack.
It's a singular pack. Thanks for being here. Kraven the Hunter is out. Apparently, this is the end of all of these like Spider-Man adjacent movies. I don't know. Either way, we are here for you to come hang out with us. Yes, we are in prestige movie season, but we will always take a few minutes when an important Spider-Man adjacent movie comes out, like Kraven the Hunter. Tim, what's it about?
Охотник до сказки.
So Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Kraven. And we discover through flashbacks how he becomes Kraven. Long story short, he went on a big game expedition hunt with his father, who's a gangster, played by Russell Crowe, who has a very entertaining Russian accent throughout the film. He also has a younger brother, played by Fred Hechinger. During the big game expedition, he was attacked by a lion and he was left for dead, but a mysterious woman with a mysterious potion saved him. And at the same time, lion's blood got mixed in with his blood. And as we all know from taking biology in high school, that if you do that combination, you will have, let's just say, random animal powers. Because I have to say, I am not a Super Marvel hardcore fan, so I didn't know a lot of the backstory about Kraven going into this. And the movie, I don't think does a great job of actually explaining what his powers exactly are, but essentially he can run really fast. He can scale buildings, but not like Spider-Man. He actually has to climb up and grab things, almost like a gorilla or something like that.
It's like parkour.
Yeah, but it's not like a Spider-Man thing where he can like attach himself to the wall. He actually has to grab things, and also he can lift like huge amounts. So those are his powers that I guess he got from the lion's blood and the mysterious potion he was given by a young woman. Later in adulthood, we will find out that that young woman is Ariana DeBose, who is a high-powered lawyer who will help Kraven the Hunter. Because in this movie, and this is actually different than in the comic books, Kraven the Hunter is a bad guy in the Spider-Man world. But in this movie, he is a good guy. And what he does is he uses his awesome hunting abilities because he can like smell. He can smell really good. The power that we all wish, of course, that we had. The power
and see.
To smell and see things. Listen, now that I have glasses, I wish I could see better. But he hunts bad people. He doesn't hunt animals. He hunts bad people who do terrible things to the planet. He and Ariana DeBose's character work together, and they're fighting Alessandro Nivola, who is a nerd. He has a backpack on all the time, but he has, I don't want to spoil anything, he might also have a superpower and be a supervillain in his own right, and he will do battle with Kraven the Hunter. Christy, I think I've done my best to describe the plot of Kraven the Hunter.
You have left out Christopher Abbott.
Well, I wanted to wait. I wanted to cede the floor to you to talk about.
If we're talking about this ridiculous cast being totally wasted here, we also have Christopher Abbott. We have all these really serious actors. Russell Crowe, Fred Hechinger. This is like Fred Hechinger's 4th movie of the year after Nickel Boys, which we'll talk about next week, and Gladiator 2 and Thelma.
Yes.
It's like that year that Jessica Chastain was in 7 Things. This is like that. There's a scene with Christopher Abbott and Alessandro Nivola sitting in the back of a car talking, and I was like, I would give anything to hear them talking about anything else besides the dialogue that they have been given. Like really serious New York theater actors are stuck in Kraven. We should also mention that J.C. Chandor directed this. Totally mind-boggling. Like, how do you go from Robert Redford in a boat by himself?
Right.
Is that All Is Lost, right?
All Is Lost, yeah. And of course, before that, Margin Call, which I also think is great. Yes.
Margin Call is great. A Most Violent Year is great.
Yes,
He's a serious filmmaker.
Yes, and in the last few years, he did that Netflix action film Triple Frontier, which I was not a big fan of. I know other people did like it. I thought it was kind of mediocre.
Same.
But that, I think, is a real step up from this. And it's a real... Christopher Abbott, I think, I didn't want to hog the whole thing, but yeah, I think Christopher Abbott is really fun. I also think Nivola is really fun in this movie.
He's really good in this. He's as good as he can be in this. He makes some interesting choices with his delivery. There's a moment where he's like in his lab/loft, his like this brutalist underground bunker where he lives, and he's standing at the counter and he makes some noise. He goes like, I'm like, what is that? Like, that's terrifying and hilarious and like makes him seem very unstable. I think, yeah, people are doing the best they can with this material, but it's really, really terrible. Having said that, I had a good time. I laughed a lot because it's very silly and it's just dumb, you know?
Yeah.
But then there are moments where like there's one legitimately thrilling chase through the streets of London, which also made me wonder, like, okay, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven is barefoot. Like, doesn't this hurt to run through this? There's like a whole thing with gravel and a helicopter. Like,
Yes.
why are his feet not in pain?
This was a question. You and I didn't see it at the same time, but this is a question I asked a colleague of ours afterward. I said, I don't understand the rules of the feet of Kraven the Hunter. And I don't know how that works exactly, because many times throughout the movie, he is running barefoot. I legitimately could not understand that. If I may also talk about some of the other problems with the movie that are connected to the running element. This is not a spoiler per se. In fact, this is not a spoiler, but there is a scene in which Kraven the Hunter is dealing with some bad guys who are in a van. You saw this more recently than I did, Christy.
Last night.
So you may remember this. The van gets away. The van eludes our hero, Kraven the Hunter.
Mhm.
We then have a cut. The van is then someplace else, very far away. Kraven the Hunter just shows up there. He just shows up there. My advice to all villains who are dealing with Kraven the Hunter is he has awesome smelling. So don't just be like, oh, thank God our car got away from that guy who runs really fast. He will keep running. And I actually laughed out loud when the cut happened, because literally it's like, they're like, oh boy, you don't have to worry about that guy anymore. And then Kraven the Hunter just runs. And I want him to be like, I never stopped running, you jerks. I was still running the whole time. Did you think I was going to stop running because he drove away?
He's like, hello.
The movie, I think, as most people will probably know, has been delayed several times. It was shot in 2022, and it's only coming out now at the end of December. It's supposed to come out last year. Whether or not the writers-actor strike actually affected it or not, they used that as the reason to delay it. It's supposed to come out at the end of the summer. They pushed it back to December. And when you know that going into a movie, you will sometimes watch it and go, where are the things where it feels like this was a troubled production? And I would say that the only time it actually feels like a troubled production is I think that sometimes there are some kind of weird edits where it actually feels like they just sort of jumped ahead or excised some plot just to kind of get it. Because the movie is 2 hours and 7 minutes long. And so maybe they were just like, let's just make this as short as humanly possible and get as many screenings per day. Because there are some times where it feels a little kind of like it sort of jumps ahead. There's also some not so great ADR, which also kind of feels that way. This, as you alluded to, is the sixth of this Spider-Man adjacent universe kind of thing. And I think something that you've talked about, I want to bring up, which is it's kind of dumb. And I just feel like in general, all six of the Spider-Man adjacent, I guess they're calling it the Spider-Man Universe, all of the movies I think I would classify as dumb. And the real question is, do you find them dumb fun or just dumb? This is the only one where I was actually like, no, this just seems dumb.
This is bad.
Yeah, this one just feels kind of bad, and it feels kind of boring. And if I don't want to put you on the spot, but I actually thought of this ahead of time. If you had to rank the six movies, there are 3 Venom movies. There's Morbius. There's Madam Web, and then there's this. I would actually put the second Venom movie as my favorite of the six.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is
second Venom, and then the first Venom. And like, I don't hate Madam the Web the way everybody else does, because I think Dakota Johnson knows what she's doing there, and she's in real time making fun of the material for our benefit. So I don't hate Madam Web the way everyone else does. And then this to me just felt really frustrating, given like the talent in front of him behind the camera. Like the cinematographer is Ben Davis, who shot like 3 Billboards and Eternals. And he's a gifted cinematographer. There are some shots in this movie that are very pretty, like stuff in the forest with like the way the light is streaking through the trees, but then like the visual effects look terrible in comparison. So it's very frustrating here and there. I think Morbius is the worst.
So I know you and I have talked about Madam Web, not on here, but you and I have talked about because we feel the same way about Madam Web, where it's like, I also think Sydney Sweeney is very entertaining in that movie. I also think she knows what she's doing in terms of that film. My second favorite would be Morbius, because I enjoy just how ridiculous that movie is. And I think on some level that movie has sort of a monster movie thing that's kind of doing. Both Morbius and the second Venom, I think, really lean into the monster movie thing that make them both kind of fun. All the other ones are just different degrees of dumb and how much do I hate my life at this moment. But I have to say Kraven the Hunter, because people will say like, oh, is Aaron Taylor Johnson just terrible in this? I actually think he's fine. So it's not a thing where it's like, oh boy, Aaron Taylor Johnson is just going to be like hiding in a cave for the next 3 weeks. No. I don't think he's terrible in it. It's just, when I wrote the review that I did for Screen International, the thing I said is like, if you tell me, oh, it's a superhero and he can climb things and he's strong and fast, I just feel like it's way too late for that to be a thing I'm interested in. I would also say his backstory, we talked about a little bit, but I want to say more. I don't think like thematically, emotionally, like what he is struggling with internally is all that interesting. And so it feels like if this is the last of the Spider-Man series, and I believe it is, there's going to be Marvel movies, obviously there's one coming up, but this really feels like the end of something. It feels like the end of, unless you've got like a really good, interesting superhero, I just don't know if anybody cares anymore. Like unless it's Spider-Man, unless it's Batman, unless it's Superman, unless it's somebody that audiences actually really know and care about, just giving us a Kraven the Hunter and being like, well, there hasn't been a superhero movie in a while, you'll watch this. That era just feels like it's done.
And there's no real connection to Spider-Man in this movie at all.
No.
Like this could just be its own standalone thing that wouldn't even necessarily have to be a Marvel thing. Like, I don't think you need to know anything about the comics. There are some ties to the comics, but there's nothing Spider-Man-y about this at all. Yeah, I don't hate this, and I don't think Aaron Taylor Johnson is bad in this. I think he's doing what he's called upon to do, which is be fierce and muscular, and there's terrible dialogue, and he does what he can with it. Like Ariana DeBose does what she can with it. When we came back from seeing this last night, I had to show Nick a clip of Ariana DeBose from West Side Story. I showed him the America scene. I'm like, of course, this person is wildly talented. And that year, she ran the table and she won every single award you can win leading up to the Oscars. Let me show you what she can do, because you think she's bad here. She's not. And like everyone here, like they're good in other stuff. Serious actors. And I don't know why they said yes to this. I don't know why J.C. Chandor made this. I don't know why Ben Davis made this. Everything about it is very confusing to me, but it's not terrible. I laughed a lot, but it's not like so terrible that it is an abomination.
Yes, not an abomination, says Christy Lemire. She has some really bad ADR in this, and she has some really bad turn away from the camera. I talked to this person who has some information about blah, blah, blah. There's a couple moments in there, and I don't blame her for that. It's just, you are in a movie called Kraven the Hunter. What were you expecting? He's a decent hunter. I'll give him that. He's not a bad hunter. If you do know the Spider-Man world, there are going to be some references to other villain characters where you'll be like, oh, right, I know that person. Right. But the normal, regular moviegoer will just sort of be like, what does this have to do with anything? And the movie doesn't stand alone on its own to be like, oh, this is a fun world. So it's not an abomination, but it's, I could have been doing something else with my time, especially right now in December.
I'm sorry. There's no like mid-credit or end-credit scene that connects this to anything else. So FYI, you can leave.
Yes, you can.
And
You can.
you're going to
later.
want to, I think.
Yeah.
So what's your number then on Kraven the Hunter?
I gave it a 4.
Yeah. I would say a 3. I think it bummed me out more than anything else, given who all was involved in it. But I wasn't mad at it.
Yeah.
It's just dumb.
I was
Tim.
happy with Nivola and Abbott. Abbott, by the way, works a pair of sunglasses impressively well, and I mean that sincerely. Just him with sunglasses he's so cool in this movie. So that's why
I still don't know what his power is. Please explain it to me afterward, because I'm so confused as to, besides counting to 3, I don't understand what his power is.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. You're the best.